June 30th, 2018. The day we were robbed of the chance to see the two greatest players of all time meet in the knockout stages of the World Cup. All that needed to happen was for two games, played on the exact same day, 1,500 kilometers apart, to go in our favor. At the time, this was believed to be the last World Cup for both Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, who came into the 2018 edition in Russia on wildly different trajectories. In this video, we're going to look at how this day, June 30th, 2018, changed the course of football history forever. To understand why so much was riding on these round of 16 matchups, we have to go back to the previous World Cup cycle. Argentina made an unprecedented run to the final, beating some powerhouses along the way. The team knew exactly where their strengths laid, with a potent attack thanks to the likes of Angel Di Maria, Kun Agüero, Gonzalo Higuain, Ezequiel Lavezzi, and of course, Lionel Messi. Their defense wasn't quite as solid, with their legendary number 10 carrying them through the group stages, while the rest of the front line stepped up massively in the knockouts. This setup worked for most of the summer, but fell short against an incredibly well-rounded Germany side in the final in Rio. A loss which was the first domino to fall in a series of unfortunate events for the Albiceleste. There was no way around it. Argentina was jam-packed with talent in forward areas, but they could only pave over the cracks in the rest of their roster for so long. Add to that a timid mentality following the World Cup final loss, and pressure was beginning to mount for Messi to win an international trophy while still at the peak of his powers. A trouble with Barcelona in the 2014-15 season had Argentines optimistic. Maybe they'll finally get the silverware they so desperately coveted when the Copa America rolled around that summer in Chile. Once again, Argentina made it to the final, where they bunkered down for a tight game against the hosts, which went to penalties. Messi scores his, Higuain and Banega missed theirs, another heartbreaking loss in a final. After a ligament tear in his knee saw Messi miss 13 games for Barcelona in what was ultimately an underwhelming 2015-16 season, he had his chance to get revenge on Chile in the Copa America Centenario. This time, the roles were reversed. After a cagey game that saw both teams reduced to 10 men in the first half, the penalty shootout began favorably for Argentina. Chiquito Romero saved the opening penalty from Vidal. Messi now had the chance to set the tone with the go-ahead score, but he sent the ball soaring over the crossbar. For once, he was letting down his country. As you probably remember, the shootout went Chile's way, embarrassing Argentina once again, spawning images of a tearful Messi who dropped a bombshell in his post-game interview.
Ya está, se terminó para mí la selección. Como dije recién, son 4 finales, no es para mí. Lamentablemente lo busqué, era lo que más deseaba. No se me dio, pero creo que ya está.
After losing 3 consecutive finals, Argentina's all-time leading goal scorer threw in the towel. A poignant admission of defeat, and a stark contrast to his rival across the pond. You see, that same summer, Cristiano Ronaldo had led a fairly unremarkable Portugal side to their first international trophy, the same team that just 2 years earlier was dumped out of the group stages at the World Cup in Brazil, had downed an insanely talented France team in Paris thanks to a late goal from Eder. Even though Cristiano was injured inside the opening 8 minutes of the game, he tried everything in his power to play through it. He was eventually subbed out, visibly distraught by the prospect of missing the most important game of his international career. But he didn't let that stop him from affecting the team. Ronnie was animated on the sideline, directing his teammates from the bench with a brace around his knee, proof that he was the ultimate leader and fully deserved to lift the trophy in the Stade de France that evening. While Lionel Messi was giving up on his national team, Cristiano Ronaldo was galvanizing not just the 11 players on the field, but the entirety of Portugal. This helped affirm the narrative that Messi's subdued character made him unfit to be a leader. When he recovered from the knee injury, Ronaldo continued an unreal run, winning 3 consecutive Champions Leagues and 2 straight Ballon d'Ors to tie Messi's grand total of 5. He steered a constantly improving Portugal side through UEFA World Cup qualifying, earning 27 of a possible 30 points, scoring 15 goals in the process. By all measures, at this point in time, CR7 was pulling ahead in the GOAT debate. Messi had his moments, but Ronaldo had just as many. Barcelona couldn't get over the hump in the Champions League, crashing out of the quarterfinals in 2016, 2017, and 2018, completely choking a 4-1 aggregate lead against Roma just months before the Russia World Cup. Speaking of the 2018 World Cup, Messi did return to the Argentine national team in September of 2016 after endless pleas from his compatriots, despite an epic goal in his first game back, and the Argentine FA eventually hiring the manager who had led Chile to glory back in 2015, the squad was falling apart, suffering some embarrassing losses in CONMEBOL qualifying. Nothing epitomized the crisis quite like Messi's uncharacteristically bleached hair. They sat just outside of the qualification spots going into the final match day against Ecuador, in a do-or-die game that could see Lionel Messi miss his first World Cup. Things looked pretty bleak when Argentina went down 1-0 inside just 2 minutes, but Messi pulled out a vintage performance, dropping a hat-trick in Quito to punch the Albicelestes' ticket to Russia. Now, back to the actual tournament. With all of the context around both players at the time, Ronaldo at the peak of his powers, while Messi's national team career appeared to be in freefall, it became increasingly clear that either one of them winning this tournament would irreversibly turn the tide of the GOAT debate in their favor. Ronaldo was now 33 years old, and Messi wasn't far behind at 31. All indications were pointing towards this being their last major international tournament. Fans dreamed of them one day facing off in a competitive setting for their national teams, but when Argentina and Portugal were both seated in pot 1 for the group stage draw, it became clear that we would have to wait for the knockouts. The Portuguese drew first blood in the tournament, grabbing an iconic hat-trick in a 3-3 draw against Spain, carrying his great club form into the tournament with him. He scored the lone goal in his country's win over Morocco, before he got away with a missed penalty in a draw with Iran, which saw them through to the round of 16 as group runners-up. Lionel Messi had a much tougher time in the group stage, missing a penalty that could have won Argentina their opener against Iceland before being completely neutralized in a whooping at the hands of Croatia. Just as it had in qualifying, Argentina's fate would be determined on the final day. Messi was up to the task once again, with a rare right-footed goal from the Magic Man. Nigeria weren't going down without a fight though, finding an equalizer from the penalty spot. And it would be the unlikeliest of heroes to lift Argentina from its ruins, as center back Marcos Rojo scored with his weak foot in the 86th minute, saving his country at the death. With both men's teams through to the knockouts as group runners-up, they wouldn't be facing off in the round of 16. They were, however, seated in the same corner of the bracket, meaning that if they both won their first knockout game, Portugal and Argentina would face off in the quarterfinals. Even better, they would both play in the first leg of round of 16 games on the exact same day, June 30th, 2018. Argentina would go first, facing France in Kazan on the banks of the Volga River. Meanwhile, 1,500 kilometers southwest in Sochi, Portugal had to get past an Uruguay side that was in its third World Cup with the same core of players. If Argentina and Portugal came out on top at the end of 90 minutes, it would set up a quarterfinal in Nizhny Novgorod a week later, a fork-in-the-road moment in football history, if they could just survive another week. As far as the obstacles in their way, France was still dealing with the psychological damage of losing the Euros final to Portugal. But there was one major difference in 2018. A 19-year-old Kylian Mbappe, who had burst onto the scene with Monaco in 2017, was France's new talisman at the tournament. The Parisian was rapidly establishing himself as the best young talent in football and heir apparent to the Ronaldo-Messi duopoly. Argentina's squad was one of the oldest at the tournament, while Mbappe helped make France one of the youngest, a discrepancy that became painfully clear in the opening minutes. Before we dive into the game, just look at the difference in these starting lineups. Anyways, France's number 10 made gashing runs through the Argentine lines, eventually forcing an awkward tackle from Rojo to give Les Bleus a penalty. Griezmann converted from the spot, and they weren't done there. For the next quarter of an hour, Argentines could only sit and watch in horror, as an aging Albiceleste side was completely overrun. After surviving the onslaught, Argentina finally began generating a few chances. Nothing too clear-cut, but Messi's getting on the ball and creating, despite a less than stellar supporting cast. That was until his longtime partner in crime, Angel Di Maria, found himself with time and space in the middle of the park near the 40th minute, and rocketed a shot into the top corner. One of the best goals of the World Cup, keeping an admittedly flat Argentina team afloat, heading into halftime at 1-1. Argentina came out of the break a team reborn, suffocating the French in the opening minutes to win a free kick at the edge of the box. It was cleared by Pogba, only as far as Messi, who drove a low shot towards goal which deflected off Gabriel Mercado and in. Argentina were in front for the first time that day, but with most of the half left to play, they would have to defend for their lives, which they did, for about 10 minutes, until Pavard scored the goal of the tournament in the 57th. Argentina's response was to continue to sit in a low block and try to force extra time. Even with Messi on the field, there appeared to be no genuine belief that they could score again. Just 6 minutes later, Mbappe snuck a shot under Armani for the advantage, and Argentina still couldn't get anything going. France put together a surgical move that ended with another Mbappe goal in the 68th, proving themselves to be the far superior side with what appeared to be the dagger. Argentina continued to sit deep, terrified of what the French attack could do to them. The South Americans had their fair share of late drama in the tournament though, so when Messi broke off one of his signature runs in the 84th, the entire world held its breath. Pretty indicative of Argentina's tournament. He did assist a stoppage time consolation goal for Agüero, but a last gasp attempt didn't go Argentina's way. And just like that, they were out of the tournament. No Ronaldo versus Messi quarterfinal. Disappointing, but in all fairness, the better team advanced. But there was little time to waste, as just a few hours later, it was time to see if the Portuguese would hold up their end of the bargain. While France-Argentina in the 2018 World Cup will go down as an absolute classic, the same can't be said for Portugal versus Uruguay. To put it kindly, they both had old-school managers who knew exactly what it takes to win in tournaments. This meant defense first, attack, maybe. Uruguay knew that their ticket to the quarters hinged on keeping CR7 at bay, which they did fairly successfully. Diego Godin, who routinely faced the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner at club level, put in the game of his life, as Portugal came out playing on the front foot. But the South Americans clogged up the middle of the field and countered on the break. The opening goal started with a beautiful switch of play from Cavani to Suarez, who repays the favor with a pinpoint cross into the box. Advantage Uruguay. Their defense was impenetrable. Lucas Torreira was playing like a man possessed, until Pepe broke free on a well-worked corner from Portugal to level the game in the second half. But just 7 minutes later, Muslera launches the ball downfield, and Cavani scores one of my favorite goals of all time. The way he opens up his body and strikes the ball so cleanly, I could watch this like 1,000 times if it weren't for copyright. Portugal really can't get anything going, desperate to get Cristiano on the ball at all, but he wasn't the same player he had been in his youth. Mazy dribbles weren't really in his repertoire. He was a scorer above all else. The reigning Ballon d'Or winner ultimately couldn't be the difference maker for his country, as Portugal went out with a whimper. And that was it. In a matter of hours, the potential for one of the most consequential matchups in football history had been squashed. France went on to win the entire tournament, avenging their Euro 2016 loss, but the summer of 2018 saw a dramatic shift in football's landscape for an entirely different reason. Just 10 days after bowing out in Sochi, Cristiano Ronaldo moved from Real Madrid to Juventus for a fee of 117 million euros, leaving behind the team where he had his most successful spell in search of a new challenge. While Messi stayed put at Barca, 2018-19 was the first season in nearly a decade that the two greatest players of all time weren't in the same league. While both shone on the domestic level, neither Ronaldo nor Messi were able to win another Champions League in the year since, despite their very best efforts. For Barcelona, it was another capitulation late in the tournament, squandering a 3-0 lead against Liverpool in the semi-finals, not helping the bottle job allegations against Messi. Juventus were out by the quarterfinals courtesy of an iconic Ajax team. Ronaldo won the Nations League with Portugal that summer, which, say what you want, it's still an international trophy, and put him even further ahead of Messi in that regard. The Argentine would get the chance to respond in the 2019 Copa America, but only contributed a penalty goal and an assist as Argentina came third. Not the type of carry job the national team had come to expect of him. An evolved Lionel Messi still won the 2019 Ballon d'Or though, carrying Barcelona throughout the year. However, the onset of the pandemic destabilized both Barcelona and Juventus in unprecedented ways that I don't have time to go over in this video. To make a long story short, it exposed the cracks in two of Europe's worst-run super clubs. It got to a point where Messi even requested a transfer, but ultimately decided to stay on board for the last year of his contract. While both Ronaldo and Messi ended the 2020 to 2021 season as top scorers in their respective leagues, they were both let down by their clubs in the summer. But before we get onto that, we have to address a major shift in the balance of the GOAT debate. Lionel Messi finally broke the 28-year-long drought and brought Argentina his first major trophy in 2021. The Copa America win over Brazil in an empty Maracanã was extremely cathartic for Messi, who had finally matched Ronaldo's feat with his national team in the same stadium that he had lost the World Cup final in 7 years prior. Breaking the curse earned him a 7th Ballon d'Or in 2021. Yet despite the good vibes, drama with his club team ruined the summer. Barcelona were unable to re-sign their greatest ever player for the 2021-22 season due to financial constraints, forcing the Argentine to join PSG. Likewise, Juventus had cooked their books, meaning they were happy to let CR7 go at a discounted price. A sentimental return to Manchester United got off to a flying start, but ultimately didn't go to plan. Ronnie had a major falling out with the club just before the 2022 World Cup, which resulted in the termination of his contract by mutual consent. Messi, meanwhile, was struggling to adapt to his new environment, not playing to the same standard as he had in Barcelona. He found a patch of good form heading into the 2022 World Cup, with another international trophy win making Argentina an outside favorite. You can probably remember the rest, and hopefully now that Argentina vs France final in 2022 makes a little more sense. It wasn't just a clash between two powerhouses, it was a revenge game, with Messi out to prove that he could still put on a show for his country. His career took some unexpected twists and turns since that 2018 round of 16 tie, but he came out the other end triumphant. You could argue the opposite is true for Ronaldo, who fell victim to a similarly incompetent club hierarchy at Juventus and saw his career somewhat stagnate in the years that followed the 2018 World Cup. This drop-off accelerated with age and was not at all helped by the drama with Manchester United. He was eventually benched in the knockout stages of the Qatar World Cup, a signal that his career was tapering off, and a reminder that the tournament was truly the end of an era. Argentina winning the 2022 World Cup ended the GOAT debate for many, but with both Ronaldo and Messi in the twilights of their careers, it's always nice to look back at the days when they were both dominating so that those of us who were fortunate enough to live through it can fully appreciate their greatness before they're gone. It's absolutely insane to think of how differently their legacies would be perceived if they had met in the quarterfinals of the 2018 World Cup. If Portugal win, Ronaldo proves he is the ultimate leader of a one-man team, and unquestionably the bigger contributor on the international stage. Whereas if Argentina win, Messi can start to right the wrongs of his lost finals, and perhaps accelerate his post-tournament career resurgence. But that's not how it happened. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have some disclaimers in the description, but I'd really like to hear what you think of this topic in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.